One of the most famous guitars of all time is Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat. This was Van Halen's attempt at combining the sound of a classic Gibson guitar with the physical attributes and functionality of a Fender Stratocaster. Its unorthodox setup and appearance has made it one of the most recognizable guitars of all time and has inspired generations of copies and imitations. From early 1991 to mid-1992, Kurt Cobain played a black Strat that went through so many unusual forms that one could almost consider it the Frankenstrat of Grunge. This guitar is known among the diehards as the TOM Strat, due to its unconventional tune-o-matic bridge and stop tailpiece setup. But this guitar had an entire life before this setup was put in place. It's the only electric guitar that we have concrete visual proof as to have been used on Nevermind, and has an extremely interesting story from start to finish. While parts of its story are still shrouded in mystery, in this video we will be looking at the history, the many forms, and all that is currently known about the TOM Strat. Before we get into it, I need to give a huge shout out to my friend Pensy77. This is his favorite Nirvana guitar, and he has been messaging me details and photos of it for well over a year, and is a major source of the info you'll be seeing in this video. I can only imagine how much time he has put into researching this specific guitar, and am grateful to share the information he has presented to me. Thank you so much, man, for all your help. It's a little hard to tell, but by looking at photos of this guitar in its first form, it appears to be a Japanese ST362 Fender Stratocaster. The clues that tell us this are the 1-ply 8-hole pickguard, the thick Fender logo on the headstock, and the 2 string trees. If this is the case, that would make it the same model Stratocaster as the Vandalism Strat, which will play a key role in the story later on. The first visual documentation we have of this guitar is from the show on March 2nd, 1991 at the Zoo in Boise, Idaho. This is an exciting, energy-filled show in which Kurt uses both his black MIJ Strat and his white K Strat. A trend that we will notice in these early Nevermind era shows is that these two guitars are basically a duo. In early 91, up until the Nevermind sessions, if one of these is seen, the other is right there with it. These were Kurt's first 2 Fender Stratocasters, and perhaps what sparked his love of this model, as he would continue to use heavily for the remainder of the Nevermind era. In its first form, we can see it has an angled black humbucker with a chrome pickup ring. Kurt Cobain's guitar tech, Ernie Bailey, recently confirmed to me that while this guitar was at Sound City for the Nevermind sessions, it had a Seymour Duncan 59N humbucker. While those sessions are 2 months out from these photos, we can safely presume that this is the pickup it has at this point in time. I've seen it suggested that the pickup ring is black, but in my opinion it is very clearly chrome in these photos. It's also got round black knobs, and I want to point out that at this point it still has its standard Stratocaster bridge. Pensy77 sent me this interview that gives us great insight as to where potentially Kurt got these 2 Strats and who did these first round of mods. Rick King, the owner of Guitar Maniacs in Tacoma, Washington, said in an interview,
"I sold Kurt a bunch of guitars and effects for the Nevermind album. When they got signed to Geffen and started getting money, Kurt was still very frugal. He bought some Japanese left-handed Strats and had humbuckers installed in the Strat's lead position. He didn't spend very much money on guitars."
This is how we see it on March 2nd, 5th, and 7th, but on the 8th, the knobs have been switched out for standard white Strat knobs. That March 8th show at the Commodore Ballroom is a standout concert from this time period. It's where the very famous picture of Kurt playing the K Strat upside down was taken by Charles Peterson. Charles also captured this black Strat at this show in many brilliant photos. This one perhaps being one of the most well-known photos of the band. There is an excellent audience recording of this show that I highly recommend you check out if you haven't heard it. We next see this Strat duo on April 17th at the OK Hotel in Seattle, a significant show that features Smells Like Teen Spirit's live debut. Kurt presented this song to the world on this black Strat. This is the last show before the Nevermind sessions. which took place in Sound City Studios in California from May 2nd to the 28th. As mentioned previously, this is the only electric guitar we can say with 100% certainty was used on the album, and it's all thanks to this photo. While recording Lithium, the band was struggling to keep time as Dave Grohl kept speeding up when the chorus hit. After many failed takes, the band frustratingly launched into a volcanic jam that would go on to be the album's hidden track, Endless Nameless. Kurt was so upset during this jam that he smashed his guitar in studio while recording, and this photo shows the aftermath of that. Also, as mentioned previously, we know from Ernie that the pickup it had while at Sound City is the Seymour Duncan 59N. Ernie also shared with me that he believes the Vandalism Stratocaster was acquired as a replacement for this broken Strat to finish the album. He believes that same pickup, the 59N, was put in the replacement Strat as presumably Kurt really liked the sound of this Nevermind Strat. Whether or not a second 59 was purchased for Vandalism or the exact one was repurposed and put in is anyone's guess. It's a cool thought though, to think that maybe the 59N we hear Kurt playing Endless Nameless through at the Paramount show is the same exact pickup that was used to record that song. After the Nevermind sessions, in June, Nirvana embarked on a West Coast club tour opening for Dinosaur Jr. The show on June 14th, 1991 in Los Angeles marks the first time we see this guitar in its Tom Strat form. The humbucker is now set straight. It has a replacement 11-hole 3-ply pickguard, and the tune-o-matic bridge and stop tailpiece have been installed. I know the question that everyone wants answered is why this setup was chosen, and unfortunately, we don't really have an official answer for that. It has been floated that these pieces might have come from Kurt's short-lived Hondo Les Paul copy, but it's really anyone's guess. From the two photos we have from the show where we can see this guitar, we frustratingly can't make out what's on the headstock, so we don't know if it's the original Fender neck or the replacement neck we see at its next appearance on August 15th, 1991 at the Roxy, when Nirvana played a showcase for their record label and the media to create buzz about their soon-to-be-released second album. This particular show is interesting, as there are currently no audio or video recordings of it, but some have called this the best Nirvana show, and Kerrang! Magazine even went as far to list this show at number 1 on their 100 greatest gigs of all time list. What we do have from this show are the best and clearest pictures available of this guitar. There are some really great shots that give us a detailed look at the bridge setup, close enough to just barely make out that there's a black piece of tape covering the hole that once housed the Strat bridge. There's also plenty of shots of the blank replacement neck that seems to have lasted only for this show. My Tom Strat build is based off of this show. I do not have the experience or knowledge to do a setup like this on a Strat myself. This was completely done and set up by my good friend Jeff of Low Mic Guitars. It's a Squire hardtail body, blank Mighty Mite neck, Tex-Mex single coils, Seymour Duncan distortion, chrome pickup ring, and of course, the tom and stop tailpiece. I chose a Seymour Duncan distortion because at the time this guitar was getting put together, it was believed Kurt's humbucker Strats from this time period had either Seymour Duncan 59s or Duncan distortions. It was not too long after Jeff completed this guitar that I learned that the Tom Strat had the 59N at Sound City, but I already have every variation of the 59 in other guitars, so I'm happy to have something different in this Strat. Plus, the Duncan distortion sounds great and can totally get that fall 91 tour sound. You've been hearing this guitar in the background of this video, but check out this video if you want to hear a more upfront demo of it. It'll be linked here and in the video description. After the Roxy show, we get to the legendary Fall 91 Nevermind US tour, a tour that was famously booked in advance of anyone knowing that Nirvana would start to take over the world at this time, which led to insanely overpacked and chaotic shows. For about the first month of the tour, the Tom Strat and the Jaguar were the main guitars Kurt was using. We see it at the first date of the tour, on September 20th at the Opera House in Toronto, a show that has a memorable and beloved early performance of Penny Royalty. There is excellent video footage of it from the next day. September 21st in Montreal. From September 20th and on, it is used heavily and consistently until October 12th, when it was smashed in Chicago. For this entire stretch of time, we can see it has a Fender replacement neck. In October, there are some notable cosmetic changes. A big black smear, and Christ appears to have signed the headstock. It's signed as Chris and not Christ, because for a few years, he was going by the Americanized version of his name. So if you see an autograph of his that's spelled Chris and not Christ, don't be quick to discredit it, because that is how he signed while Nirvana was active. The last recorded use we currently have at the time of this video being recorded is that October 12th Chicago show. The band ended that show with completely destroying Dave's drums so that their tour manager would be forced to buy him a new kit. It seems that the Tom Strat was used heavily in this process, as we see it on Ernie's workbench here, and it has lost its neck yet again. We don't see any trace of this guitar for 8 months. Funny enough, there is one more known form that we only have footage of after the fact. These two Polaroids were taken by Nirvana guitar tech Big John Duncan in June of '92. These tell us the Tom Strat went on to have another burst of life after October '91, this time with a black pickguard, black knobs, angled humbucker, and what appears to be a Kramer replacement neck. I just know that someone is going to say, "But Eric, how do we know that this isn't the Vandalism Strat?" Well, we know this because of the damage on the body. It lines up perfectly with the damage seen on the Tom Strat and not on Vandalism. Plus, we can just barely make out the right post and wheel from the Tom bridge here. I wish I could tell you more about this section of the Tom Strat's life, but these pictures are all that we currently have. Fingers crossed that one day, video surfaces of whenever this guitar was used on the European '92 tour, so we can get a look at it when it was whole and functional. In recent years, the body of the Tom Strat has been occasionally on display, notably at Mopop in Seattle in their amazing Nirvana exhibit. This body is often referred to as the Endless Nameless Strat, which is an appropriate name, but it can be misleading. When I saw this body in 2011 and read that it was smashed during that recording, I understandably assumed at the time that it was smashed into this state only after that recording. It would have been a pretty brutal beating if that were the case. But in reality, we are looking at the body of a guitar that was smashed at least 3 or 4 times, possibly more. The most notable one, of course, being the one that was sonically captured and is preserved for all time on Nevermind's hidden track. Although it doesn't get the recognition of Kurt's most well-known guitars like the Jaguar, Competition Mustang, and Skystang 1, an argument could be easily made that this is one of Kurt's most notable guitars. It was used on Nevermind and smashed during Endless Nameless. It was then fixed and used just as much as the Jaguar for the first month of the Nevermind tour, until it was smashed again in October '91. It is only after this guitar that we see the Jaguar move up to the main slot of Kurt's guitars. It then resurfaces the following summer, but its use and story becomes clouded in mystery at that point. It might also hold the record of the Kurt Cobain guitar with the most unusual mods and forms, which makes it a standout even if we choose to ignore its studio use. Thank you so much for watching, and an extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Follow me on Instagram at Nirvana Guitars, and check out my other Nirvana gear videos right here on YouTube.